This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
Ken Bates returns to the show.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, man. Okay. And me, Cambo here. And we just decided, you know what? Out of all the topics we're going to do, let's not even do it on the date we haven't scheduled for. Let's talk about the actors who later became directors. And there's quite a huge list of them. We'll just kind of casually talk about some of the big ones. There's going to be something for everybody. A lot of them will be former sitcom or TV actors who, are still continually working. Some of them are, very famous A-listers who, became very prominent filmmakers, winning awards. But we connect to them because of how just good they are at staging and, and not taking you even the credit for everything. Literally working very well with storyboards and the visual effects and cameramen.
Yeah.
So Ken, just as kind of an intro, we're all movie guys, but it kind of takes us a while before we realize, I want substance, I want I want style, I want. When did you start kind of really like paying attention to actors, and you're just like, I have to see most everything they're in, or really
man, well, it kind of starts for me.
We put a while to connect the dots.
Oh no, not for me, man. I remember when my father took me to see Star Wars when I was really little. I thought the actors were up there in the booth with a microphone.
Nice!
Because I was really
live
little.
Radio show. Or something. Yeah.
And then when my father told me about movies and how they worked and whatnot, I became all about movies. And when I found out who Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were, I was as obsessed with them as I was Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher.
Sweet.
So
anyone who's in a big visual effects realm or who collaborated with one of the others, so it's like, hey, they're best friends with De Palma and Scorsese. I better check out their movies.
Pretty much, even at a very young age. And then when my folks opened a video store, I kind of from reading
forgot
cover
about
boxes
that.
and whatnot. Yeah, I grew up in a video store in Massachusetts. I think my folks owned it from 1984 until 1994.
Oh, so they started when Big Brother was watching them.
Pretty much.
Hey, don't rewind that tape.
So, I don't know, just putting it together and then just, put it like this guy. Oh, what's this name? Oh, right here. And then I can't remember who I got into right at. It started with Lucas and Spielberg and just went from there until flash forward 20 years later, I'm in college and I'm looking at Godard and Truffaut and all those pretentious
the French. It is an interesting one. It's like some of the French New Wave you see. Yeah, I see what Luc Besson and the other European guys took from him, and then the others are like, putting me to sleep. I'll be a minute, 40 minutes. Damn your Turner Classic Movies.
But one of my favorite filmmakers is an actor turned director. That's Ron Howard.
Woo!
Ron Howard, is he crazy like Tarantino or Spike Lee, or even like, does he do amazing montages like Scorsese? No. But when you go into a Ron Howard picture, there's usually at least a 60-70% chance it's going to be good.
Yeah, even if there's one I'm disappointed by, I can't ever say that he didn't give it his all, make sure everyone was really in tune. And I don't think he suffers fools either. I think if anyone's ever in the zone, he's apparently pretty good at understanding what they're going for and communicating to them, and then telling the other crew what's going on without wasting time. I remember a hysterical like ESPN spoof that he was in, just making fun of like dramatic movies, and he's just like at a baseball field saying, "You're dying, you gotta give this emotion." And it was just like, that's great. And I mean, what can I say? I watched a bunch of Happy Days growing up as a teen, but it was interesting also just seeing how how he collaborates with producer Brian Grazer at Imagine. And I did take his master class, where he has all those pre-recorded lessons, and he does a very cool lesson. I recommend it, and the Sam Jackson, Natalie Portman ones, but also the Aaron Sorkin class. But it's because Sorkin's really good at talking about how just reminding everyone, you got to say this out loud instead of getting angry at how people are saying it. It just might not work as dialogue. But Howard's really good at, like, he reenacts a scene from Frost Nixon, and he brings in all these like working but beginning actors who haven't made it yet. I'm like, that's awesome. And he showed how many different ways he could orchestrate it and communicate to them, this is where the camera's coming at and sees you. I'm like, thank you, because they never taught us staging in film school. It's just like, that's like a key ingredient. And instead they're all getting mad at, how did you shoot it? And what did you use? I'm like, well, we got to figure out where it's pointing first. Where it's being lit. You
can have the coolest thing in the world, but if the camera's not looking at it properly, it's not going to look good.
Sometimes you just can't recapture it. Sometimes you got to record the rehearsals as well. It's good take. He's been in the entertainment industry since he was like born, I think. I don't know. I don't have his IMDb, but his father. He's been doing it since he was a young child, and then he was on Mayberry. Oh goodness, I think he was probably like 5 or 6 when the show started. So that, and it does help that along with Jonathan Dim, he collaborated. He did some cheap pictures for Roger Corman, but he was still, always just being back and forth. And I wasn't surprised that he was helping out Lucas on occasion, with Willow and, being in American Graffiti. It's just like that all kind of ran together. And, obviously we're going to talk Robert Redford. And I think those two kind of just, I kind of definitely associated them the most with directing movies and shows because, Redford forms, Sundance, and then gives it up after a while because it becomes too corporate and not what he envisioned. And it's interesting too how Ron still kind of also has the whole, got to find a great actor, but also got to find some indie sensibilities and then some, big, large scale stuff that, make the money count. Don't put it to waste. I think some people started giving him some shit because they were disappointed with the what's the Da Vinci Code guys?
Dan Brown. Is that Dan Brown?
Name? Yeah. And I think I can't blame him. I think at that point he's just like, I want to do something more awesome with everyone's dad, America's dad.
I don't know. People became obsessed with that book. I can't explain it. It was
yeah, well, it's funny. I know family members who read it but never even saw any of the movies, and they had no interest at that point. I was like, well, I can't recommend it or say it's bad necessarily. It's just it is what it is. Someone was going to adapt it one way or
another. I have a good friend of mine loves adventure movies. He says those are solid. To him, those are solid adventure movies. So
nice. It basically was Indiana Jones, especially about the third one. Obviously, I can't not mention Tom Hanks. He did some heavy words, kind of just what he wanted to do, some select episodes of Band of Brothers. And
That Thing You Do was great.
and basically at that point, he just wanted to bring in an idea of what the 60s were like. Period pieces.
Yep. And then probably other than Ron Howard, probably the biggest actor turned director has got to be Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah. At that point, Clint. It's just so funny how every actor who works with him gets so comfortable loves his attention to detail, especially Laura Linney, Morgan Freeman, and Matt Damon all talking about it. And then at the same time, sometimes they'll be unsure. He's like, do you want it this way? And he's like, if you want to waste my film. It's like, okay. So he doesn't want another take. He just wants you to move on after that point. Oh, man. There's some serious Canadian actors and like Kristen Lehman, who's one. You might know her from Altered Carbon and Midnight Mass. And it's interesting, too, how just about every other person on Star Trek, ER, 24, 30-something has basically directed hours of TV. Laura Innes, Paul McCrane, Carlos Bernard, Leslie Hope.
That's something I've noticed is that as TV shows go on, the stars always start directing.
Always.
It's probably part of their contract to keep them. You figure it's got to be boring doing that. It gets boring doing the same job, so
they like it because they have a little more control, definitely a better payday, and how they get it is often is like an assistant director knows them, or one of their former like fiancés or longtime friends. Finally, it's just like, I need a guest director. Who will I give this to? Hey, I've known you for 30 years. Come on over to Oklahoma or South Carolina. We're shooting, an episode of Better Call Saul or Walking Dead and Stranger Things. My pal Jeannie, she does stunts, and she got to work on an episode of Fear the Walking Dead that was guest directed by Lou Diamond Phillips.
Nice.
She was just like, oh, La Bamba. And I think everyone owes it to it. It's like some of those guys really can be just quite kind, and sometimes even my pal Nathan Hartley was on a few episodes of Salem, and he kept running into Peter Weller, and Peter at this point was basically, any show he was directing, whether it was like Last Ship or Sons of Anarchy or Longmire, he would eventually like have like a recurring, acting role on it. And on Salem, he was just like chain smoking and then just reminding everyone, even the extras, hey, remember, you're doing a good job. I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
Nice.
It's like, I hate it when I see other people just kind of being too blind to where it's like, really, there isn't any need for that. I would hear other people getting pissed off as being extras on the set of a major picture like one of the X-Men movies or Jason Bourne, and then not getting paid, and you're just like, fuck that. That's garbage. Some of that was individually just third-party companies and then not doing the right paperwork or what have you, but whatever. Fuck that. It's not cool.
It's, actors who turn directors, they remember what it's like to be an actor, I would think. So that's how, in
all fairness, they're not handling payroll, but it is annoying too at the same time where you're like, let's talk. Let's come around. But James Whitmore Jr. is another one. He's like the son of a senior who was also like a actor and director. Same thing with like Kevin Hooks, is like they were doing like, his father was Robert Hooks, and same kind of deal, just long-term like guest star actor, and then directing a bunch of like crime and action shows for like NBC and Fox, and a lot of St. Elsewhere guys like Eric Lonneville, same kind of deal, and Michael Pressman basically has worked for the whole David E. Kelly farm. I'm never surprised when there's a puppeteer like Frank Oz.
That's right. Yeah, Frank Oz. He did direct movies.
Even some of them basically were like responsible for like their hit show. Like Terry Kinney of Oz directs a lot of his shows.
Nice.
Jack Webb, Mr. Freaking Dragnet guy, was literally coming up with all the scripts.
Wow.
Kyra Sedgwick and Kevin Bacon would direct a lot of each other's shows. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Jonathan Frakes has been pretty cool because, there's a lot of good, Star Trek actor turned directors, but, especially the Voyager and DS9 cast. But I really applaud them because they just kind of, you just saw it on their face and in interviews, is like they knew their worth. It's like, hey, I've done all these guest roles before I was famous and other stuff. Is like, now I want to, actually, storyboard, bring a lot to it. And Franks is just cool because, he literally was studying. He was going into the editing room after hours when he should have been, memorizing lines, and actually, he went to like two most common guys to study, Ridley Scott and James Cameron. He's like, I love their movies, so I'm going to study them frame by frame, go to the video store and rent out their movies again. And I'm like, well, even better.
Yeah.
Matt Shankman, even Dom DeLuise had a bunch of kids who he's acted. Thomas Carter is another big one. Carl Franklin came from Roger Corman School. And obviously I can't not talk about Ben Affleck or John Turturro.
Oh yeah. Affleck, especially
John Cassavetes.
Oh yeah. But as someone who grew up in Massachusetts, Affleck's one of the people who gets it correctly, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I had Jay Skipworth from Film Strip on here, and he was talking about I understand the tendency for Southern stuff, but sometimes those accents are just really lame, Beverly Hillbillies stuff. And I can imagine many people are like, I'm Boston. I'm like, nope.
If you want to see it done really badly, see Juliette. Oh man, I'm
Lewis.
spacing out right now. Not Juliette Lewis. Julianne Moore. Sorry, Julianne Moore on 30 Rock. That's how you do it bad. I love her. Don't get me wrong.
Oh no, she's great. But yeah, I mean, even for a comedy,
maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point because it's a comedy show. But
I mean, I don't know.
but one, this may surprise
New
you.
Jersey.
One actor who directed something that I really enjoyed is I really loved Bradley Cooper's A Star Is Born.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know where he's going to go, if he's going to keep doing musicals or what have you, but he's interesting in that I don't think anyone really knew where he was going to go. He was like, he's a bit part guy. And then next thing you know, he's like in two major comedies and then like a bunch of other ensembles. And now he's just doing voices. And you're just like, I don't know where he's going at this point.
I'm from a punk rock background. So I read the headline, Bradley Cooper to make Star Is Born. I'd roll my eyes, but I like Lady Gaga. So I said, you know what, I'll check this out. And I was really blown away.
There you go. They're everywhere, man. They're everywhere. Betty Thomas is interesting. She's done a bunch of comedies. Bonnie Hunt. Oh
yeah.
Mario Van. Sorry, go ahead.
She made Private Parts.
Oh, that's right. Yes, she did. I Spy and what's the other one? 28 Days with Sandra Bullock and Viggo Mortensen.
Yep.
Mario Van Peebles is another one. Learned from his dad. And when his dad actually passed away like a few years ago, I saw him on CNN, actually, surprisingly. My mother's like, I think I know him. I'm like, oh, you've seen him. I know you haven't seen New Jack City, but you've seen him on LA Law.
Yeah, I love the movie he made about his dad. Badass.
It's such a funny movie, and it's such a personal movie too. It's just it's also just kind of cool because a lot of these guys, like especially Frank Wally, he's like he'll go and do like a movie with his friends Vincent D'Onofrio and Ethan Hawke, and just like literally they're all pitching in like money or what have you. And Emilio Estevez is the same way. He's like, yeah, Charlie gave me like $2 million to make a movie about my dad. I'm like, perfect.
Sure.
And it's just funny because it's like, it really does all make sense. It's like, that's all they want to do. Dick Van Patten's another one. He was teased like as a kid actor, despite The White Shadow being popular. And then next thing you know, he's directing like all these popular HBO shows.
Another one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Keith Gordon, another big, huge in TV.
Keith Gordon.
He was a young kid from De Palma's Dressed to Kill, and he was Arnie and Christine. Yeah, he's directed an episode of just about every TV series that's come out in the last 20 years.
There's some of them I'm still surprised they're still like around, like Mark Tinker. I'm like, that's freaking St. Elsewhere era. They're still around. John Favreau, of course, is another big one.
He did direct something pretty big, didn't he?
Peter Howitt, freaking Paul McCrane from ER, Richard Attenborough. I had to even remind my family. You're like, is he the guy from Jurassic Park? I'm like, yeah, and he freaking narrates PBS. Come on,
yeah.
Aisha Tyler surprisingly did a bunch of short films and stuff with her Criminal Minds fans, and she was able to. The Kickstarter was so well done for like this one indie film that not many saw, but like all of them have like voice cameos in, and she was able to fund it in like 2 weeks. I'm like, that I applaud you guys. Ben Stiller was recently on the Smartless podcast, and he talked about he literally just accepted it. You're being raised by two comedians, and he actually instantly just learned to just kind of take small breaks, just breathe, and just realize, okay, I'm gonna leave my takes for very last when I know I have all the shots, and then I'm gonna just take 10 minutes to remember my lines, because I actually got to be on camera, and I don't want to make everyone else suffer. I'm not 100%.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small-town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
John Krasinski was on Conan's podcast, and he was really good at just saying, he's like, I'm going to take on any movie, regardless of whether I'm a fan of it, because I know there's something in there, and they didn't just ask me. Like he admitted, he's like, he took over this movie that had Anna Kendrick and Shirley Copley, and he's like, hey, someone's got to be in charge of this, but you guys are really all comfortable with this. I feel comfortable if I was just helping arrange this and telling the camera guys what to film. And he admitted, he's like, I'm really not all that big a horror guy, but A Quiet Place just spoke to me for whatever reason. I was like, that's awesome.
Now,
John Huston, I forget, is like half the time is like he's acting in half of his movies, and Orson Welles.
Yes.
Growing up, people would make fun of how ego-headed he sounded, but it's like, I can't blame the dude. He, out of all the guys to be at war with a studio, I think he was kind of justified compared to others who are just kind of prima donnas and just gonna always kill the messenger when they're told they can't do this. And he is kind of more is like, I'm just breathing this, I'm thinking this, and if I gotta basically pay for 20 more film reels, I guess I'm gonna do it.
One actor who only got to make one movie, but it was brilliant, was did you ever see Charles Laughton's Night of the Hunter?
Oh yes, yeah, Robert Mitchum. And don't you love how that one 1958 Fugitive on the Run ex-con movie he did was supposedly directed reshoots by him too?
Oh, nice. I did not know that. I'll have to check that
how about, and it's just so funny because I talked about it with a bunch of other pals. My pal David Bates, who's a Canadian filmmaker, and we were just joking about, oh man, if the Screen Actors Guild or Directors Guild knew about it back in the day, there'd be some angry letters. But I really guffawed even more how it became very apparent in a blunt Cowboys and Indians magazine interview with Kurt Russell, how basically everybody on the set of Tombstone directed a shot, even the bit part actors.
That's Cosmatos.
And it actually made sense to me because I have Vic Armstrong,
favorite director with air quotes.
And that's so funny. Yeah, Stallone was the one who suggested it, and is like, so he technically directed Rambo 2 and 4, not just 4.
Cobra,
and probably. He basically directed Judge Dredd. Let's not lie. He basically told the director, you're going to do this whether you like it or not. But I found it funny how, because it made sense to me, because Vic Armstrong, the famous Indiana Jones stuntman and second unit director, noted how he basically rescued this one obscure World War II movie with Lee Marvin and Roger Moore that Cosmatos helmed back in Italy. And basically everyone wanted to quit. And he was the only one doing his job. And then he got to where he's like, hey, Cosmatos, how do you go to the side, buddy? Everyone hates you anyway. And Cosmatos was like, yeah. And then after a while, a week of not getting shit done and behind schedule, was like, I guess I'll let you take us over. I'm like, sure. And I just thought it was funny. It's like, yeah, so it made all sense to me. It's like
funny. He made an entire career of it.
He had a whole career of just being hated in Italy and in America, and basically I just found it even funnier how his sons become a director, but the difference is everyone seems to kind of like his cult horror movies in his process. I'm like, that's so funny.
Yep.
You're the son of a hack, and basically everyone has to take over your movie just to make it better. Like, so it does get annoying how everyone thinks, oh, you know, the credit don't lie. I'm like, the credits do lie. Look at Bryan Singer
all the time.
And Bryan Singer like directed like 20% of freaking like Bohemian Rhapsody, and then literally not showing up most of the day, and no one it wins Best Picture, but he's not invited to his own fucking movie. It's just it does get annoying having to tell people. Is like, even the writers is like, if there's like 20 producers, I guarantee you like maybe half of those at least did some rewrites or brought it to studio consideration and funding. You know,
it's, you know, the bigger the movie, the more people are involved with getting it made.
1,000%. Bill Duke, I really especially also love, because like, you know, deep all those Lawrence Fishburne crime films, and then just select episodes of TV, it really all made sense to me. And he was great because I had to do like a research project for class, and you know, just go to like the Film and Television Archive, and you're going to see endless interviews, just great ones. And I kid you not, for like hours on end, I was watching interviews with Bill Duke and Carol O'Connor, and just talking about how they literally just took over just half their shows and rewriting. And Duke especially was interesting because, you know, he worked with Samuel Fuller of all people, and Fuller was, you know, already blacklisted because he's talking about very psychologically PTSD, you know, stuff that can't be even approved by the Hades codes or whatever. And he's just like, you think with your gut and you just go forth regardless of what funding, everything matters. And I was like, that's awesome. That totally makes sense of what I see with you, Duke, because you're very atmospheric yourself. For a while, it just seemed like it was just, again, stunt people and cinematographers and even makeup artists and wardrobe guys getting directing gigs. But these actors are cool in that they don't downplay it. I always love seeing an interview with the Duplass brothers, and I don't know if you're familiar with any of their work, Mark Duplass.
Yep.
And also Tom McCarthy, you might know from Station Agent, Spotless, and he's very emotional and got a lot of natural comedy. And whenever I see one of his movies, I'm always like, you know what? That just felt good.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other movies where you'll watch, like I've seen movies by James Franco and Nick Cage and other people. And I'm like, no thanks.
Well,
I don't know what it meant, but that was weird.
Well, let's get into it, Cameron. Let's get into probably the worst actor directing a movie. You know what I'm talking about.
Antonio Banderas. Great actor, but he did a really bad movie with this one, Melanie Griffith.
Oh, I was going to say Star Trek 5.
Yeah, Shatner. It's, well, that's actually a good segue. I've actually been very impressed by LeVar Burton. I actually saw a recent interview on how he returned to the NCIS franchise, and he was actually honored to be asked to do that because I think after Roots, that, you know, and the success of that really did a rake in his creative side, but he's still pissed to this day because he was promised to direct Nemesis. And it's just so funny because then they're like, oh, let's hire this guy who's an editor, you know, really talented editor, but has zero interest and isn't getting along with any of us. And Frank's even admitted is like, he took zero of our advice. Like, he just didn't want to be bothered. It's like, then why are you here? But yeah, LeVar was just like, I guess I'm going to just shut up and take the paycheck because you fucking offered me a directing option. And they kind of made it up to him by having him direct the other spinoffs. But it's like, still, I want to direct the goddamn feature with our crew. But yeah, Shatner, it is just so funny how it's just like, he does not fess up to it, even in the commentary if you're listening to it. It's a funny commentary, but it's like, you can do a lot more with the visual effects. Come on, fess it up. I know you know who's responsible here. Oh, God.
He was more interested in climbing that mountain because he was in love.
Climbing the mountain. Have you seen that one Full Moon Entertainment movie he did where it's like Groom Lake or whatever shit.
No.
It's so funny because it's got barely a budget. Amy Acker from Angels is gorgeous in it, but it's just so funny because you're watching it and you're like, I can barely hear any of the sound, and some of this is like blurring the line between amateur and low budget, even by Charles Band standards. Oh my
God. And that's a low bar.
That's a low bar, but what do you expect? It's Mr. Bill.
But before I go, because unfortunately I gotta head out. But I'm based on her work on the Star Wars shows. I'd be happy to see Bryce Dallas Howard get her chance at making a feature sometime.
I'm sure she will. I know Green Book's Nick Villamanga has made a living doing lots of B pictures. Angela Shelton, Jordan Peele. I'm really impressed by Adam Arkin, Nat Faxon, and Jim Rash from Community. Sean Levy's another big one. Rocky Carroll's literally been directing all of NCIS. Jason Weiner, Hasifia Herzai, Gavin Hood, Kiefer Sutherland, and Forrest Whitaker, Timothy J. Woodward Jr., Edward James Olmos has directed some huge episodes.
Oh yeah, and definitely, the BSG.
Guillaume Kanat, Sion Heder, playwright Tracy Letts, also Tony Bill, and there's a bunch more, but I'm seriously getting into it. Masu Kosovitz, I'm really impressed by. You go from Amelie, and then you get to work on a bunch of other obscure French films, and it's just such bullshit that half his movies were being rewritten or taken away from him by the studios, and then you see him in Munich, and you're like, you're a good actor, but god damn it, you're a brilliant director. You need more work. And and I would be amiss if I did not talk about Scott Cooper. It's brilliant crime dramas from him. Hostels, Out of the Furnace, just really utilizing his invaluable cast. And the Kings, in my opinion, have got to be Carl and Rob Reiner. Those,
yes. Oh God, yes.
Seriously, me, because much like how Nimoy was just really good with settings, and Howard is just really good at just every theme has been done, as he said before. But if I can create some kind of interest and character want and need, then that goes even beyond that. John Stockwell and Don Michael Paul were 80s kids, and they've done all the kinds of campy action movies for Sci-Fi Channel and Sony. And last but not least, Casey Lemons and Vonnie Curtis Hall. Those are a great married couple, and they do all kinds of comedies and crime dramas. And nice. I got to mention Clark Johnson of The Wire and Homicide fame. He's done all kinds of movies still as well with Homeland and what have you. And good on him, because whenever you see him, even he had a great terminology when he shot the pilot for The Shield, that they couldn't show some of the cast members because they were literally being paid as extras, and FX almost did not greenlight it. I know, impossible to think, but they wanted some of that Sopranos money at the time, and everyone's like, you have a dirty cop as the lead? Oh, we don't want to sponsor that. And he's like, well, I need you to, because we're moving away from risque comedy and just simple reruns like Buffy and what have you, and we got to actually come up with an edgy show. And he's shooting in the middle of LA. They have clearance to shoot in this block of the town, and they're going through an actual stop traffic, and everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? And he sees a stray dog, and that's where it came back to him from his experience working on The Wire a month ago, as well as Homicide, being an actor on that show and the directing episodes later on. And he's like, I want you to shoot the dog, not literally, but just like follow him. And that's the style we're going to use. That's the tracking. That's the steady cam. And that's where we're going from here. But thank you ever so much. And anything you want to promote before we...
Oh, I thought of one more.
Oh, Gina Rodriguez, Sam Shepard.
Oh,
Leslie Hope.
Probably one of the toughest celebrity deaths that I still am not over. I was going to say he only directed one picture, but Bill Paxton actually directed two pictures.
Oh yes, him.
He made the brilliant The Frailty, and I totally forgot he made a sports movie called The Greatest Game Ever Played, which is actually about my best friend's great uncle, Francis Ouimet.
Oh, I did close to home.
Yeah, well, I forget, because my buddy, they put out a stamp of this guy. He was an amateur who won, I believe, the U.S. Open golf tournament, and it was one of the steps to popularizing the sport to grandpas all across America.
He and even Amanda Tapping from Stargate are pretty cool in that they done so much directing and even producing scripts behind the scenes, and yet you kind of want them to talk about it more. They don't really talk about it enough. And you're like, but you guys are really pretty good, because there's a big difference when you guys did it versus other people who, just casted their, fiance.
Their babysitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or the nanny. Yeah. One of the two.
But R.I.P. Bill Paxton. He's one of the celebrity deaths I'm still kind of not over.
I miss him. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought him up. I knew I was missing somebody.
There's a ton more, and we could probably spend a lot of time. We could probably spend hours doing this. But thanks again for having me. If anyone wants to check me out on Instagram, Yoda3278, and hope to be back soon, Kim.
Beam him and his saber up.
Thank you.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up